we also need to be seeking God's wisdom for the next generation. As he puts it there, verse 21, as he proclaimed the fast there, to seek for him a safe journey for ourselves and our children. Ezra, he probably had family. And so he's not simply concerned about his family, and he's also not just to be concerned about himself and his generation, but he knew that there was another generation that was coming after his. And do you know who's responsible for the generation that is emerging and coming behind us? For him, he knew who he was, his generation was. I'm going to tell you one of the struggles that I have with the modern church today. I'm a pastor of one. I've been wrestling with this for the bulk of my ministry, and that is that the modern church in the Western context most often suffers from what I call missional myopia. You know what myopia is? It's a fancy word for nearsightedness. You know how that works, right? If you guys, most of you that have glasses or contacts, I suffer from it. I have contacts in right now. But basically what happens is your eyeball begins to elongate. And the way that the Lord miraculously has created the eyeball, we have light that comes through, provides images through the lens of the eye, and it is supposed to be projected on the back of the eye, on the retina. But when you have myopia, when you have nearsightedness, that image at its clearest point doesn't focus on the retina, it's somewhere in front of the retina. And what ends up happening is that distant items appear more fuzzy and blurry than close-up items. And I think that's where a lot of us are when it comes to the church, and where a lot of churches are. The future is blurry for most of us. We are so preoccupied with the present moment and what's happening right now that the future is blurry and it's not a concern. And when Christians and churches suffer from missional myopia, they tend to ask, what does this group of people who are showing up today really want? My fellow church members, what do we need to be doing that benefits us? What's going to keep the people around me happy? And for some of you, this to be true. What do we need to be doing or not doing so that the person I sit next to doesn't complain as much as they used to complain, right? So when you have spiritual and missional myopia, you tend to focus upon what's very close. All we see is the present. All of our decisions that we make, we tend to make with spiritual myopia and missional myopia. Our decisions are for the here and the now, and it gives little thought for the future. But here's the thing, just about every decision that this generation makes will impact the generation that is to follow, the generations that are to follow, whether we want them to be affected or not. Let me give you an example. On October the 28th, 1991, some of you know this date, it was 28 years ago, this past week, an arsonist set fire to our historic worship building in downtown Ocala and brought the building down. It was a very difficult, dark moment in the life of our church. Now, we had already had plans to relocate to this particular location, but that fire, that arsonist fire, hastened our relocation to this piece of property. And I will tell you, decisions began to be made not long after that about what we were going to build here. One of the decisions that we made was to build a multi-use building. It's what we refer to as our education and fellowship center building next door. And then after that, once we built that would give us a place to worship and do Sunday school here on this property, and then we would turn our attention to this building. Now, we had some more distant plans down the road that would specifically provide space for kids and students, but the immediate decisions back then really didn't put a whole lot of attention upon those areas. And what we ended up doing, we began to shoehorn student ministries and preschool ministries and ministries to kids into existing space. Now listen, friend, that was 26 years ago, and here we are now 26 years in the future, and those ministries remain in temporary space. Many of you don't even know that because you never go up into those parts of the building. Here's the kicker. Pastor BJ, who is our next-gen pastor, so all of our ministries from newborns all the way up through college all fall under his ministry, and he specifically gives attention to our student ministries. Pastor BJ was 4 years old when those decisions were being made. 4 years old. Travis, our kids director, was just a twinkle in his mom and dad's eye when those decisions were being made. He wasn't even born. But every single day of ministry, these two men and those that lead in those areas have to deal with the decisions that were made 26 years ago. You see, the decisions of this present generation impact the generations that are to follow. Now listen, we have some decisions that are coming our way soon. We haven't talked a whole lot about this since earlier in the year. It has to do with facility upgrades. You can look around. I mean, this room is the carpets are worn. Our decor is seriously out of date. We need to retrofit this room to accommodate ministry in a new era. We definitely, at some point in the near future, need to update our kids and student space at some point soon. We've got some work going on in the background. We keep waiting any day for some numbers from some specialists who are helping us figure out what it's going to cost and have a plan to do this renovation. Once we receive it, at some point in the near future, we will present that to you as a church to decide upon. But when we make our decisions on what to do, it must be more than what this current generation wants. It's got to be more about what this current generation needs. We have to decide, all of us that are members, we have to decide on behalf of the generations that are to come. We have to decide on behalf of those that are not yet saved yet. We have to decide for them, because they will have to live with the decisions that this generation makes. That's why we call you to fast and pray. That's why we call you to humble yourselves and to seek a safe journey for our children or our grandchildren. It's because we trust God's wisdom. Listen, these are big decisions. And I will tell you, they keep me up at night sometimes. And the reason they keep me up at night are those are the moments that I'm trusting more in my wisdom than I am the Lord. And that's why we need to say to God, we don't know completely what we need to do. We need to trust you in your wisdom. Not just for ourselves, but for the next generation. Here's one final